Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another episode of Added Time. Hope you all had a great weekend, keeping safe and healthy, ready for another week during the lockdown. Today I'm going to be answering all of your questions that you kindly sent in on a wide variety of topics. But before we get into any of that, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also give the video a like because it helps out the videos and content as well. So let's get into your questions. Firstly, from AG here, next season, what player will have the best impact on bringing us to cup finals and using for big games, excluding Hakim Ziyech? That's an interesting question. It's a tough one because how unpredictable transfers are. If Chelsea are to sign players, some big players that could impact us, injuries, suspensions, form, players leaving as well that you don't expect. Based on the current squad, I think Kovacic will have another big impact. I think he'll have a big season for Chelsea in some form or capacity. If he could have an impact more in goals, but I think based on what he's done this season, I think you can expect that to continue next year. Pulisic, I think I'll name Pulisic because I don't just want to talk about Tammy, or maybe HUDSON-ODOI or players like that, Reece James or Loftus-CHEEK I could mention as well. I think that Pulisic, I think if Pulisic is fit, I've said this before, I think if Pulisic has a really good year in terms of fitness and form, I think he will be a big player for Chelsea. If you just base it on what he's done this season, I think he's had a really impressive first season. When you look at the numbers and look at what he's done, I think people have forgotten about his impact. So I'm going to say Christian Pulisic there. I think he'll have a big impact for Chelsea next season and then moving forward, looking at his age. Next, from Twitter, at Waldinho asks, should Azpi still be a regular starter next season? I think a lot of people expect that Dave won't be as involved next season in the first team because of Reece James. But at the same time, it still needs to be a meritocracy. It still needs to be a situation where Frank Lampard's going to be picking on who's best for that position. I think there is an expectation probably from the players, from probably Lampard as well, the fans around the club, that Reece James is the future at right back. But as we've seen, Dave can play in a variety of positions. Sometimes he'll play as a wing back, he'll play at left back. I don't expect him to be, but don't think just it's a given that Reece James will play. I think what Lampard has shown this season is that he's going to still lean on that experience. And I think Dave has probably got one more season left in him at Chelsea. At the Score 01 asks, thoughts on Havertz potentially signing? How will the pandemic affect our transfer plans? Lamps getting involved in transfers. Havertz, I've heard about, the link between him and Chelsea. I know Raphael Honenstein went on Alex Goldberg's podcast and talked about it, Chelsea's interest in him. And also there's been an article from The Athletic about Coutinho, but as well in that article, they talked about Chelsea's interest in the midfielder. I'll probably maybe make a video at some point this week talking about Havertz more in depth. It's another midfielder though, it's another central midfielder that I don't feel Chelsea need. If we're talking about prioritising signings, I think, it's sort of gone a little bit silent over left back, centre back, right winger and striker. So I think in terms of Havertz, I'm not entirely sure in terms of that priority of a signing. So I'll probably make more videos on that and talk about that in more in depth. In terms of pandemic, I think you can expect it's going to affect everyone in different ways in terms of having to sell more players than you'd expect before, having to maybe limit the amount you're going to spend in a window. I think we have to expect and just appreciate the extent of this pandemic and what it's doing to the world at the moment. And Lampard getting involved in transfers, I think it's a positive. I think it's a positive that a manager is going to have an influence on the transfers and have some sort of influence on the destiny of his team. I think there's maybe been a problem before of conflict, as we've seen with Conte, with Mourinho, with Sarri, a conflict over transfers and a conflict over getting the players you want. If Lampard is involved, he can really start to build Chelsea in his image. And it's not only for Lampard, I think future managers as well. I think having that connection, I think, is key to have a club with harmony and a club with connection, and hopefully have a club that's more successful, which would make us all happy as fans. Adrian Di Mondo asks, why do Chelsea want Ben Chilwell when you can buy back Nathan Ake, a cheaper, decent left back? Chelsea could have bought back Nathan Ake in January. That was their last opportunity before that buyback clause in his contract expired. So not taking up that option, I think for me, almost rules out Ake for any moves soon. I think that was sort of the last opportunity to do it. It doesn't really make sense. If Chelsea were desperate to sign Ake, they would have taken that opportunity. I think it's similar to the Jeremy Boga situation. And, we haven't really seen Ake play as much. You know, he's played much more as a centre-back in recent times for Bournemouth, and I think that was where they were sort of talking about him coming back to Chelsea as a centre-back rather than a left-back. So I'm not sure. I think that's a player that potentially is now in the past in terms of Chelsea, and I think they'll be looking at other options. And I think Chilwell, a natural left-back, I think you can expect Chelsea will be signing a natural left-back, whether that's Ben Chilwell, Alex Telles, another option there. So yeah, I think that's the reason why they're not going to be going for Ake anytime soon. AG asks, how long do you think it will take for us to get back to the top, challenging for the biggest trophies? All depends on a variety of factors. It depends on how well Frank Lampard does as Chelsea's head coach, how, you know, successful Chelsea are in the transfer window in terms of buying and selling players. You know, that's always a big factor of getting that right, getting that system right. Even if you buy players that you assume are good, will they have the impact you hope? Will Hakim Ziyech really have that transformative impact we hope at Chelsea? As we've seen before with Chelsea signings and all signings for every club, some don't work out for a variety of reasons. Hopefully it will take maybe a couple years. I think the young players of Chelsea are serious and keep on the right track and give these young players time to develop over a number of years, even with trying to recruit and improve the squad. Hopefully it could take maybe 2 to 3 years, but you know, it could be faster than that. Those young players could really prosper in a quicker fashion than we'd expect. I think it will take years of patience, which I think is the key word I'd use. So I think it will take probably 2 to 3 years, hopefully, but it could be faster than that. We'll have to wait and see. Tino asks, with Ruben returning, Mount improving, Tino emerging and Ziyech arriving, should Chelsea keep Ross Barkley or sell him to strengthen other positions? I think Tino Anjorin will probably be loaned out. I expect that. I think he'll probably be best suited for a loan move next season. If Chelsea, we'll talk about midfielders. I think if Chelsea are desperate to sign a midfielder this summer, which I don't think they should be personally, I think that's one area Chelsea shouldn't be focusing on in terms of recruitment. I think you would need to sell one of those midfielders. And realistically, Ross Barkley is the one in there. Even if he did finish before we suspended football really well, he was doing really well for Chelsea, probably in the best form of his Chelsea career. I think Barkley, in terms of the wages he's one of the highest earners at Chelsea when those financial reports came out recently. So I think Barkley would be the one you'd sell, just based on looking at, you know, those attributes. You're looking at a player who maybe isn't going to improve drastically in terms of his value. It'd probably be a good move for Chelsea. They could probably get a better fee than they bought him for. Chelsea are really good at doing that. So yeah, maybe I'd only say if I don't think with all those. I think Tino Anjorin probably for his age will get a loan, which I think would be good. I think Ruben, Mount, you know, all those players will still be competing. Ziyech, you know, I still think will probably play in a wider role. I don't think him and Barkley would be competing for the same role personally. So I think keep Ross Barkley if you're not going to sign a central midfielder. But if you are going to sign a central midfielder that's going to improve Chelsea, I think you'd sell Ross Barkley. And lastly, Bagger TV asks, who is the biggest signing do you think Chelsea will make this summer? Biggest in the way they will impact our team? Really depends, as we've talked about in this video and previous questions, how the pandemic is going to affect transfers. Jadon Sancho is Chelsea's apparently biggest target. If Chelsea can sign Jadon Sancho in front of Manchester United, that would be a massive signing. It would impact Chelsea. It would transform the way our team would look. I think it would impact the likes of Christian Pulisic, the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi, maybe in a detrimental fashion. We could see striker, you know, could Chelsea sign a Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang? That would be a massive signing. I think in some ways that would be bigger than Jadon Sancho, because Chelsea are looking for that clinical edge, and to get a striker like that off of one of your rivals in quite a surprise move, I think would be massive for Chelsea. Havertz would be, you know, a massive deal, as we've talked about Lautaro Martinez, that would be a massive deal as well. Maybe a centre-back as well. I'd say Jadon Sancho, but just because of we're talking about links towards players, I'd say Jadon Sancho because I think that would be massive. But as an outside shout, in sort of an outside shout of a player we talked about, I think that a left-back, if Chelsea can get a good left-back, I think it would have massive impacts on Chelsea's ability to attack and attack better. We've seen it before. We've seen it this season. I think it's been a position we've lacked for so long. If we can get a successful left-back that has the impact we hope, I think then you'd see a player that would be big. Maybe not in terms of the actual fee. Maybe not in terms of some people looking at it as like this player's going to score bundles of goals for you in attack. But we will help the attack and we'll help Chelsea and Frank Lampard's system. So a variety of answers there, but I think probably either a left back or Jadon Sancho is my answer. But that is it for this episode of Added Time. Thank you guys so much for your questions, and thank you for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.